Welcome back to Get Real with JB, the podcast where we share real stories about love, loss, and the messy truths most people are too afraid to talk about. Today's story is one of those quiet heartbreaks, the kind that doesn't come with betrayal or drama, but with years of waiting, years of hoping, and a love that was never returned. This story isn't about villains, it's a story about comfort, compromise, and the emotional limbo so many of us stay stuck in, because we confuse loyalty with love. If you have ever loved someone who never really saw you or waited too long for someone who was never coming, this episode is going to hit home. Let's get real. A small disclaimer. To protect the identities of those involved, the names in the story have been changed, but the emotions and experiences shared are 100% real. Rajat first met Naina when they were both 19. It was a college fest in Pune and she was wearing a pale blue kurta, laughing a little too loudly at something her friend had said. He noticed her before she noticed him, and that's how it remained for the next 12 years. Him noticing her, waiting for her, orbiting her life like a quiet moon, never quite in her sky but never drifting too far away either. In the early days, it wasn't clear what they were. Friends mostly, close friends. They studied together, went out in groups, and spent long hours on the phone talking about everything and nothing. Rajat never told her how he felt, not at first. He was scared to ruin what he had, but everyone around them could see it. He was always the one picking her up from the station, waiting outside her exam hall, helping her with last-minute assignments. His world seemed to bend naturally towards her, as if his days only made sense when they started and ended with her. Naina, on the other hand, was more fluid, more complicated. She liked attention, but disliked emotional confrontation. She had a way of keeping people close while never quite letting them in. She knew how Rajat felt, of course she did, but she never said anything to encourage or discourage him. And that's what kept him stuck. She never promised him a relationship, but she never pushed him away either. There was just enough affection to keep his hopes alive. A birthday gift here, a shared secret there, a soft "I don't know what I'd do without you" when she was sad or drunk. And each time Rajat would let himself believe, maybe this was it, maybe this was love, just in a slower, quieter form. Years passed. They graduated, got jobs in different cities, but stayed in touch constantly. Calls every night, weekend meetups, texts throughout the day. Rajat dated no one. He couldn't. He was waiting for her, even if she never asked him to. Naina dated a few men, but none of them lasted. She'd call Rajat to cry after each breakup, and he'd console her like it was his duty. Like loving her meant accepting that she might never be his. She would say things like, "No one gets me like you," and he would hang on to that as if it were a promise, even though it was just a sentence. His friends tried to intervene. His sister once told him bluntly, "She's using you. You are a cushion between her loneliness and her real life." But he couldn't see it. Or maybe he didn't want to. Love makes people blind, but one-sided love makes people foolish in a more painful way. When Rajat turned 30, he began to grow restless. His career was steady and he had started saving for the future, imagining a life where he and Naina could build something together. He began to bring up the topic of marriage gently, testing the waters. She always brushed it aside. "I don't believe in marriage," she would say. Or sometimes, "My parents will never agree." But never once did she say, "I want to marry you." That sentence never came. Still, he stayed. 12 years is a long time to wait for someone who never chooses you. By the time they both turned 31, something began to shift. Naina's parents, who had always been traditional, started looking for matches for her. She told Rajat about it almost casually. He asked her what she planned to do. She shrugged. "Maybe it's time," she said. He didn't sleep that night or the night after. He didn't ask her again if she loved him. He didn't have to. The silence was louder than a rejection. But still he stayed, out of habit, out of hope, out of a deeply rooted fear that leaving her meant losing the only version of love he'd ever known. And one day she called him with news. She was getting married. Her parents had found someone, a banker from Delhi. The wedding was in 6 months. "He's nice," she said. "Get along." Rajat didn't say much. He congratulated her and ended the call. Then he sat alone in his small Mumbai apartment, staring at the wall for hours. The days that followed were a blur. He went to work, came back, barely ate. He kept replaying every moment of the last 12 years, trying to understand where it all went wrong. But there was no moment, no sharp turn, just a slow erosion of his spirit, quiet betrayal of his own needs. Naina called him a few times after that, wanting to talk. But something in him had finally snapped. Not in anger, in resignation. He didn't answer her calls, not because he hated her, but because he finally understood. She never loved him. She just liked him around, and he had allowed it. He had let himself become the placeholder in her life while she waited for something better, something more socially acceptable. The wedding pictures came up on social media. She looked beautiful. The groom looked proud. Rajat stared at them for a long time, then deleted his account. Healing didn't happen overnight. It never does. But slowly, he began to rebuild. He started therapy, picked up photography, began traveling. He met new people. He stopped blaming her and started asking himself harder questions. Why did he stay for so long? What was he trying to prove? That he was good enough to be chosen? He realized he had confused loyalty with love. He had thought that if he had stayed long enough, loved hard enough, he would be rewarded. But real love doesn't work that way. It cannot be earned by endurance. It must be freely given. 12 years is a long time. It's almost an entire era in a person's life. And Rajat had given those years to someone who was never really his. And yet, the story isn't about blaming her. Nana wasn't evil. She was confused, scared, maybe selfish, but not malicious. She didn't promise him anything. She just didn't stop him from waiting. And he didn't stop himself either. This story is about the quiet compromises people make in the name of love. The versions of themselves they give away piece by piece until one day they look in the mirror and don't recognize who they are. Rajat eventually moved on, not to another woman, but to a different version of himself. One who no longer measured his worth by whether someone loved him back. He still thought of her sometimes, especially on rainy nights or when he passed a coffee shop they used to visit. But the pain had softened. It was no longer sharp, just a dull ache like an old scar. He didn't hate her, just finally loved himself more. And that's how it ended, not with a confrontation or a dramatic goodbye, but with silence, with letting go, with learning that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to walk away from someone who will never choose you, no matter how long you wait. Some stories don't end in betrayal or cruelty. They end in quiet acceptance, in empty inboxes and unreturned calls, in the slow realization that the person you have loved for over a decade never actually chose you. That the love you carried, nurtured and protected so fiercely, so faithfully was always a one-sided affair. Rajat's story haunts me, not because it's rare, but because it has happened to me too. And it's also painfully common. So many people, men and women, live through this kind of emotional limbo. They give their best years to someone who keeps them close but never truly lets them in. Someone who enjoys their presence but never intends to commit. Someone who lets them wait not maliciously but carelessly because they can, because they know we'll stay. And we do stay. I don't know why, I have no answers. I think we stay because hope is powerful. We tell ourselves stories to fill in the gaps. She's just not ready yet. He's scared of commitment. They just need more time. But the truth is often simpler and far more brutal. If someone truly loves you, they won't keep you waiting in uncertainty. They'll fight for you. Love may be complicated, but it is never ambiguous. What struck me most about Rajat was not how deeply he loved, but how deeply he lost himself in that love. For 12 years, he edited himself down to the version she liked. The friend, the helper, the emotional crutch, the patient listener, the man who never asked for more because asking might mean losing her. And yet, what did he have to lose really? There's something terrifying about confronting the idea that you have been holding on to a fantasy, that you stayed not for love, but for the possibility of love, that you sacrificed your own desires, your own growth, your own relationships for someone who was never willing to meet you halfway. There's a kind of grief that doesn't get talked about enough, the grief of waiting, of investing years into someone and realizing they were never going to choose you. It's not like a breakup, because there was never anything solid to break. It's not like betrayal, because they never made a promise to begin with. It's the grief of waking up one day and realizing that the love you built your emotional life around was never real to begin with. I think many of us are taught to romanticize waiting, to glorify loyalty, to wear sacrifice as a badge of honor. We hear phrases like, true love waits, or if it's meant to be, it will be. But there is a fine line between hope and self-neglect. And sometimes waiting isn't romantic, it's self-abandonment. What makes it worse is that the world rarely sees your heartbreak. You weren't an official couple. There were no anniversary dates, no pictures to delete, no mutual friends asking how you're holding up. You suffer in silence because it feels like your pain doesn't count. But it does. Your love was real, even if it wasn't returned. And that's the hardest part, isn't it? Accepting that your love can be real, deep, pure, and still not be enough. Not because there was something wrong with you, but because love isn't about effort alone. It's about choice. And if someone doesn't choose you repeatedly, actively, openly, every day, then they are not truly yours, no matter how long they have been in your life. Rajat's story also made me think about the roles we unconsciously agree to play in other people's lives. He became her emotional safety net, her fallback, the person she turned to when things fell apart, but never the person she turned towards when building a future. And sometimes that's the cruelest role of all, to be loved but never fully, needed but never chosen, present but never acknowledged. It's easy to judge people like Naina, to label them as selfish or manipulative. But the truth is, many people don't even realize they are doing it. They don't understand the cost of their indecision. They think that silence is kindness, that not rejecting you directly is somehow sparing your feelings. But silence can be its own form of cruelty because it keeps the other person trapped in uncertainty, hoping against hope. What would it look like if we were more honest with each other, if we stopped keeping people on emotional standby, if we admitted when we are not capable of returning someone's love and had the courage to let them go? But more importantly, what would it look like if we were more honest with ourselves, if we stopped mistaking pain for passion and patience for virtue? If we started asking not just do I love them, but do they love me back? And how does that love feel in my body, in my spirit, in my daily life? Because love shouldn't feel like waiting. It should feel like coming home. I don't think Rajat wasted 12 years. That's not the word I would use. He gave 12 years. He loved with an open heart, which is never something to be ashamed of. But I do think he learned eventually that no one is going to save you from emotional limbo. You have to choose yourself. You have to walk away from the door that never opens. And healing starts with the first step. Today, Rajat isn't bitter. He's not angry. He just sees things more clearly. And maybe that's what growing up is. Slow unlearning of illusions, a quiet acceptance of reality, and a gentle return to self-worth. So if you are listening to this and see yourself in Rajat, if you have been loving someone from the sidelines, waiting for them to finally turn around, please hear this. You deserve someone who chooses you freely, completely, and every single day. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to wait to be seen. You are not a placeholder. You are the whole story. And one day someone will see that, not because you waited, but because you finally stopped. If you are listening right now and find yourself in a similar space, loving someone who won't love you back, holding on to maybe, living in limbo, ask yourself, how long will you keep pouring from your cup before you realize it's empty? This episode isn't just about love. It's about boundaries, self-worth, and the quiet courage it takes to walk away from someone you once believed was your forever. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go. This was Get Real with JB, where we share stories that don't always have perfect endings, but always leave you thinking. If this episode touched something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have ever loved someone in silence, tell me your story, because here your truth matters. I will see you in the next episode. Until then, keep it real.